The Good Place has proven to be one of the most unique TV shows created in the past decade. The comedy actually works, the relationships are compelling, the cast does an amazing job at bringing these characters to life. Our protagonists actually grow and improve from the flawed individuals they once were, and the writing is for the most part exceptional. The show delves into heavy philosophical concepts.
Concrete approach. Here, let's try this.
Oh, God! Michael, what did you do?
I made the trolley problem real so we could see how the ethics would actually play out. There are 5 workers on this track and 1 over there. Here are the levers to switch the tracks. Make a choice.
The thing is, ethically speaking...
No time, dude! Make a decision!
Well, it's tricky. On the one hand, if you ascribe to a purely utilitarian worldview...
Yeah. What if lying is ethical in this situation? What if certain actions aren't universally good or bad, like Jonathan Dancy says?
Jonathan Dancy? Are you talking about moral particularism? We never even covered that. You read on your own?
You think just because I'm a straight hottie, I can't read philosophy for fun? Look, moral particularism says there are no fixed rules that work in every situation. Like, let's say you promised your friend you'd go to the movies, but then your mom suddenly gets rushed to the ER. Your boy Kant would say, never break a promise. Go see Chronicles of Riddick. Doesn't matter if your mom gets lonely and steals a bucket of Vicodin from the nurse's closet.
Real example?
Yep. But a moral particularist, like me, I'm one now, I just decided, would say, there's no absolute rule. You have to choose your actions based on the particular situation. And right now, we are in a pretty bonkers situation.
I don't think I can...
And guess what? It's not boring, and it doesn't outstay its welcome. It tells the story it wants to tell, and then it's over. Now, I will be the first to admit that the show did not end the way that I thought it would end. For the first couple of seasons, our heroes battle demons, themselves, and a system that is simultaneously working against them from day one. They find out that what they believe to actually be the good place is actually hell, or the bad place, and they find out they are actually bad people who live bad lives, and so to prove that they deserve to actually be in the good place, each protagonist must work to improve themselves as moral agents. The good news is, they do improve themselves as moral agents, and they also succeed at convincing the higher-ups, that is the judge and the demons and the employees of the good place, I don't know how else to describe those people, that the point system in place is fatally flawed and it needs a reboot. Long story short, they managed to get into the good place by setting up a system that allows for humans to experience a form of what I perceive to be purgatory. So when humans die, instead of going to the bad place for being bad people, simulations are now constructed for each individual according to their needs and downfalls, with the intent to cause these persons to improve as people as each simulation plays out. They retain certain lessons they learned from the prior simulations, and the aim is that those tiny moral improvements over time will result in that bad person becoming a good person. So The Good Place hints that all people will go through this process and then will end up not damned to eternal torment forever, but in heaven. This is where I thought it would end. Seems like the logical place to do it, but there's a problem. And it's a really big problem.
On paper, this is paradise. All your desires and needs are met, but it's infinite. And when perfection goes on forever, you become this glassy-eyed mush person.
Hey guys, having fun? Great. So, little update. The Good Place is a disaster. Everyone here is a happiness zombie, and no one is doing anything about it because by the time they realize it's happening, everyone is too far gone to care. Enjoying themselves.
Hey guys, I'm back. Go-karting with monkeys got boring really fast.
It did?
Oh,
damn
no.
Yeah, The Good Place isn't all that good. Getting there initially seems to be the greatest thing ever, but as time goes on, those who have attained eternal life grow tired of heaven, eventually wanting to leave. Perhaps I'm in the minority here, but the solution that is presented here just fails. It left me with a comparable melancholic feeling as I would have had if the series ended with our protagonist in the bad place forever. I get why the writers felt the need to go this way, and I think it's wrong-headed for many reasons. So the show presents a door that those in the good place can walk through when they feel it's time to leave the good place. When one goes through the door, their bodies dissolve into light and it's transported back to Earth, and these dots of light infuse into people who are living, and for some reason it helps these people become more altruistic. I'm just really unimpressed with the solution, especially because I believe that the Christian tradition thoroughly accounts for the problem of growing tired, bored, and limited in fulfilledness in heaven based on our metaphysics. So why doesn't the good place function as humanity's last destination where we'd all live eternally in happiness? Well, I can point to two principal problems which make it so. Well, it's really one problem, and that problem is God. So where is God throughout the series? Believe it or not, a show that deals with some of life's biggest questions completely glosses over perhaps the biggest one of all. How does God fit into the afterlife? Well, in terms of the good place, he doesn't. So the closest to a god of some sort is the judge, but she's really not God in any classical sense of the word. And so the show's ultimate flaw is this. It spends the majority of its time dealing in ethics, but never truly deals with why there's an afterlife or supernatural goings on to begin with. And the show is permeated in supernatural goings on. And so this uninterest in taking a position on whether or not God exists in this universe does the good place a disservice. So my goal is to preserve the often held belief by the major world religions, which says that paradise will be absolutely and unceasingly enjoyable for the redeemed. Firstly, why do I think that God's existence in relation to human beings playing a major factor in this world fixes the good place? Well, let's take a look at the good place itself. It seems to be this amazing place. You can do whatever you want. You are with your loved ones. Leisure is in abundance. Just think of something that you wanted to do or accomplish, and at your fingertips, all the resources and time that you could ever need to accomplish such dreams and tasks are there. Why does this inevitably lead to discontentment and the need by humans to desire to eventually leave if all of our needs and material desires are being met? I contend that this is the problem. Underlying the good place's philosophy is the assumption that material finite things and objects could satiate a rational spirit's soul forever. The good place does get this right though. Finite objects can lead to temporary goodness, joy, and fulfilledness, but eventually those goods aren't enough. The good place doesn't say it in such candid terms, but the finite objects of desire can and will become insufficient for rational spirits' desires to the point that those things can begin to feel like hell or the bad place. And for this reason, I believe this is why the door had to be created, for human beings to escape the good place, because it doesn't eternally satiate our most deepest longings and desires. The good place seems to me to be bondage. So to understand why and how God fixes this problem, we have to define our terms. What do I mean by God? Who is God? And what is God? So stick with me here, because what I'm about to say may get a little complex, but when all is said and done, hopefully it will make sense. I've asserted that humans eventually want to leave the good place because the good place is nothing but finite objects and things attempting to eternally satiate the desires of rational spirits, and they cannot do so. So the first question should be in regards to desire. Why do we desire anything at all? Where does the desire come from? Within the Christian tradition, there exists this line of thinking, and it says that we desire because we fundamentally desire transcendent goodness. Suppose you work on extra 20 hours each week for 2 months. Well, why did you work those extra hours? Perhaps you worked those hours to be able to purchase a guitar. But why do you want to purchase a guitar? Well, that desire is probably provoked by a much more general desire to play and hear beautiful music. And why is that? Well, hearing beautiful music makes you happy. And why is happiness desirable? Well, you desire happiness because it's provoked by a much more general desire for good. Philosopher David Bentley Hart says it this way: One desires the violin, that is to say, out of a more constant and general desire for the pleasure one takes in music. But then that desire itself is provoked by an even more general desire for happiness as such. But one desires happiness because, in a very general sense indeed, one wants what is good for oneself rather than what is bad, and even in this perhaps so because, in a still more general sense, one knows rationally, even perhaps drily and purely abstractly, that the good is to be sought and the bad fled. And one wants to participate in the goodness of things. If not for some always more general orientation toward an always more final end, the will would never act in regard to finite objects at all. Imminent desires are always, in a sense, deferred towards some more remote, more transcendent purpose. All concretely limited aspirations of the will are sustained within formally limitless aspirations of the will. In the end, it turns out, the only objects of desire that are not reducible to other more general objects of desire, and that are thus desirable entirely in and of themselves, are certain universal, unconditional, and exalted ideals, or as they are traditionally called, transcendentals. That is, the intrinsic perfections of being in its fullness. According to certain conventional reckonings, being in unity, truth, goodness, and beauty, which metaphysical tradition also say are convertible with one another, and ultimately with reality as such, one may not be in any given instant immediately conscious that one's rational appetites have been excited by these transcendental ends, but they are the constant and pervasive preoccupation of the rational will in the deepest springs of its actions. These transcendentals in a Christian perspective are equal to the identity of God Himself. For a rational spirit, the reason why those things in a good place don't and will not eternally wrapped humans is due to their finite status, that which does not in the most general and transcendent sense fulfill who we are. Christian tradition presupposes that humans were created for a purpose, and the ultimate purpose is communion with God. That is where true freedom lies, and a human achieves perfection of our natures only in Him, not finite goods. The good place could be fixed with understanding these things. If God as described here existed in this universe, then the good place would be synonymous with God Himself, and to obtain such a thing would be the completion of a soul's true nature within the one good of reality that eternally gives rest to our souls. There would be no need to desire to leave if that was the case, and a door would not be necessary.